Welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to be talking about how to better support yourself on a GLP-1 peptide. So a lot of people are using these and not optimizing the results. So today I'm going to walk you through, like I would talk to my best friend or my mom or any of my coaching clients, on how to optimize your experience and get the best outcomes on a GLP-1. So if you're using a GLP-1 or you're just thinking about it, this is something you need to understand. It's never too late as either. So if you're already down that journey, it's never too late to fix things. And hopefully I'm going to give you some information to help you do that. Now, these medications are incredibly effective for weight loss, that we know. They can also quietly lead to muscle loss and low energy and even a slower metabolism if they're not used correctly. But by the end of this, you're going to not have any problem with that. You're going to understand how to use them correctly and avoid all of that. The truth is that most people are doing this wrong. I hear from people every day. They were never coached. They were just given these medications, sent on their merry way, some told to increase their dose every couple weeks endlessly, and that is not correct. That is not the correct way to do it. And there's a lot of just information that needs to be taught to people that are using these peptides, and that's what I'm going to walk you through. So today we're going to talk about how to actually use GLP-1 in a way that is going to protect your muscle as much as possible, support your metabolism, and help you feel good while also losing weight. We don't want you to crash. We don't want you to lose all your energy, have your hair falling out. We're going to walk through all of that, why that happens, how to avoid it, and that's what we're going to get into. The GLP-1s are incretin hormones. They're naturally produced after we eat, but their half-life is very short, and that is why pharmaceutical companies have gone into these clinical trials, making some of these peptides last a lot longer, like up to a week. And those are known by the names semaglutide, tirzepatide, retatrutide. There are some others, but those are the main ones that we talk about today. That's the class of peptide GLP-1s. So we're going to kind of group them all together for the purposes of this talk. So GLP-1s, they reduce appetite, they slow gastric emptying, which is what keeps us feeling fuller longer, and they change how your body signals hunger. So you don't feel as hungry, you're not getting the same cravings, the same sweet tooth, and that sort of thing. So that's why they're very powerful, and people naturally eat less, which is great. That's how we're losing weight. We're able to stay and maintain in a calorie deficit. But the part that no one's talking about is they don't fix your metabolism. They create a window. What you do inside that window determines your results. Because if you just eat less without being intentional, you won't just lose fat, you will also lose muscle. And we do not want that. So when that happens, our metabolism adapts, but in a bad way. So our energy starts to drop. We can actually have progress slow because that metabolic rate is slowed down because we're losing muscle. And long term, the results become harder to maintain. So let's just take a pause for a moment and talk about muscle, why it's so important. It actually stimulates a higher metabolic rate. Muscle is very expensive to the body, meaning it requires more calories. So when you have more muscle on your body actually requires more calories. You're also more insulin sensitive. And that's why we say it protects your metabolism long term, because if you're losing weight, but you're losing a higher percentage of muscle, then your metabolism is going to slow down even more, which makes it harder to maintain these results long term because we are now requiring less calories. So when we reduce our dose or we come off of it, our body is going to be very hungry and doesn't have the muscle there to support it. So muscle is super, super important for long-term metabolic health. So instead of thinking of this as just a weight loss tool, I want you to think of it as a metabolic reset opportunity. There are going to be a few non-negotiables that matter more than anything else. We're going to list them out and then we're going to dive into each one. So they are protein, they are strength training, hydration and electrolytes, nutrient density, gut health, and recovery. If those aren't in place, then nothing else is going to work as well as it could. Let's dive into protein, the first and most important one, because on a GLP-1, protein is the first thing that people are going to undereat. And it's actually, you should be doing the opposite. So you're going to be less hungry for sure. You're going to eat less overall. So your overall protein levels are going to drop. And that's the problem because protein is what protects our muscle and it supports our metabolism, the muscle, and it helps us to recover from our workouts better. So instead of just focusing on eating less, I want you to think about focusing on hitting the minimum protein target, right? For many women, that's going to be somewhere around 100 grams per day, somewhere between 100 to 150 grams of protein per day. If your appetite is low, that's going to feel very hard to do. So I don't want you to just feel like you have to, struggle through that. You have options. You can use some protein shakes in there. I don't want that to be your complete source of protein, but having a protein shake every day to get in some protein is a very good idea. And you can even add 2 scoops of protein to kind of get that protein up even more. But I really do want you to focus on the whole foods as much as possible. So things like chicken, turkey, eggs, egg whites, cottage cheese, if you tolerate dairy, that kind of thing. And even making your protein shake, I really love that protein milk, Fairlife. You could use that along with a scoop of protein. And that's going to really help you to boost your protein intake. And if you're someone that's on the go, those pre-made protein shakes are really good too. I love the Fairlife and Core Life ones are really good. Think about just how you can structure your meals around protein, having protein at every meal. We really want to hit at least 25 to 35 grams of protein at each meal. We don't want to just trickle protein in throughout the day, like a 15-gram bar here, 5 grams here, 5 grams there. That's not enough to trigger the muscle protein synthesis. We actually there's a leucine threshold, and that happens when we hit 25 to 35 grams of protein total all at one time. So even with your protein shake, I don't want you sipping it throughout the day. I want you to get that in within a half an hour. Okay. That's how you're going to maintain that muscle mass. That's going to be the most supportive. Now, the next thing is going to be hydration and electrolytes. Honestly, this is like such a game changer and almost nobody talks about this. So GLP-1s don't just reduce hunger, but they reduce thirst as well. So when you're eating less, you're also getting fewer electrolytes. You're not getting as much salt in your food, especially if you were maybe somebody that ate more processed foods and had higher salt intake before. Electrolyte levels are probably going to drop. And this is where people feel tired and dizzy and sluggish and even constipated. They assume it's the GLP-1s, but a lot of times it's just hydration and electrolytes. Simple thing that I want you to think about is aiming for 2 to 3 liters of water per day. I know that sounds like a lot, so start small and work your way up. The easiest way to do that is just to fill up a water bottle at your start of your day, or some people even fill it up before bed, put it in the refrigerator, get that out, start your day with at least 1-2 cups of water. That's going to get you started right away. Drink another liter while you're doing your workout if you're a morning workout person, and then have that with you throughout the day. You can add your electrolytes to it. You can add electrolyte powders that taste really good, or add collagen powders. There's strawberry lemonade flavors, all kinds of good stuff. And that will help you even more because you'll be getting extra protein, extra collagen, and your water tastes good. So you're more likely to drink it. So make sure you're drinking your water. And if you are feeling sluggish or tired or low energy, seriously, just try, even if you don't have electrolytes, just put a pinch of salt in some water, drink that, and I guarantee you're going to feel better almost immediately. So never underestimate the power of hydration. That alone can just improve dramatically how we feel. So as long as we're consistent with that. Then there's nutrient density. So when we're eating less, every bite counts. So we don't want to waste our calories on junk food. Ideally, food isn't just calories, it's information for our cells. So it's going to affect that information, those signals. It's going to affect our hormones, our energy, our inflammation, and even how our mitochondria function. Our mitochondria require a lot of these micronutrients. So if we're limited on that, we're going to feel sluggish and off and low energy. So what I want you to do is, instead of thinking of what can I eat less of, start thinking what gives me the most nutrients per bite. So the highest density, right? Nutrient density. So protein, back to protein, which now we remember from the first tip was to start with your protein. So we're always going to be building our meals around protein anyway. And then whole foods. So fruits, vegetables, things that, grow in nature. Then healthy fats. We don't want to have too many fats. This is where I would actually limit it, because fats are going to be calorie dense, but don't always provide a ton of nutrients. So when you do add fats, make sure it's something like avocado or a little olive oil, or, a little bit here and there, but don't go too overboard. That's one easy tip right there, because that's going to help you to then build on adding in some of these other healthier things. Then colorful fruits and vegetables. So those are going to be the most important because we really need to get fiber in. That's going to be helpful for the fiber. It's going to support our microbiome. It's going to support our energy, our mitochondria. So really focusing on those whole foods. That is going to support energy overall. Then let's talk about mitochondria and energy. So a lot of people are feeling exhausted. They're losing a ton of weight and they're happy about that, but they're stuck in bed or laying on the couch, which is, by the way, totally normal. It's just your body's way of adapting to how much energy is coming in. So if there's not enough energy coming in, the body's first strategy is going to be like, okay, well, I'm just going to do less. I'm going to move less. It's called NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis. Your body's going to reduce that in order to compensate for the lack of calories. Because remember, your body doesn't realize that there's a grocery store and a McDonald's and a Starbucks all, on the next corner. It's used to our survival mechanisms of, wow, there's not enough food coming in. I don't know when the next meal is going to come. I got to conserve and preserve everything, right? First of all, your mitochondria are responsible for producing your energy, and they are going to rely on nutrients. So they actually take what we eat and they turn that into energy. That's what they do. So they need that fuel and they need proper signaling. So if we're not eating enough, then that's where the energy production is going to drop off. And there isn't a whole lot you can do about that except for eat more. So I don't want you to go below 1,200 calories in a day. That's kind of the danger zone. You will still be able to lose weight. You just don't want to drop your calories too low. That's where you're going to really start to experience these energy crashes and hair falling out, things, thyroid issues, hormone issues. So try to keep your calories above 1,200. And then you also want to support the system, the mitochondria, with things like B vitamins, magnesium, CoQ10, overall nutrition. Those electrolytes are really important. We need zinc, we need iron. So this is where eating whole food nutrition can come into play, or taking a supplement. So if you don't feel like you're getting enough, for sure, get a multivitamin and mineral supplement. And that can make a huge difference. And then also make sure that CoQ10 is there too, because that's required for the mitochondria to function properly. So sometimes it's not about pushing harder. A lot of people, I think, hit these plateaus and they think like they got to do more and more and more. But actually, sometimes it's okay to take a break. You want to feel better. Add more food back in for a little while, replenish, allow the body to come back to homeostasis. You can take a diet break is what I'm trying to say. So take a week or two off. This is where if you're going on vacation, don't take your GLP. Take a break, allow your body to kind of relax and get rid of that stress. And this is true not just for GLPs. This is like advice that I would give anyone that's in a deficit. You don't want to be constantly in a deficit, like 2 to 3 months, then take a week or two off and then go back to it. That's the best way to support the body long term. Okay, now let's talk about hormones. So this actually gets overlooked a lot with women. It's now becoming okay to talk about again. There was a fear factor for a while with women on hormone replacement therapy. But let me just tell you, like, hormones affect everything. This is where a lot of our energy, brain fog, sleep issues are coming from unsupported hormones, right? And so especially in women over 40, that's when things really start to decline in perimenopause. So estrogen, when that declines, it actually can lead to more fat storage, less lean muscle, it can lower energy, brain fog, reduced insulin sensitivity. So yes, that's where GLPs can be very effective, but if you're not replacing the hormones, then your body might not be responding the way you expected. That's actually what we're seeing in the clinical data that's emerging. I'm going to put a publication here. This is where women who were on hormone therapy and a GLP-1, they were able to lose more body fat, preserve more muscle, better metabolic outcomes. So estrogen plays a direct role in that, metabolism, in mitochondrial function and body composition. So if something feels off or you feel like the peptide isn't working the way you expect it to, it could be your hormones. I would definitely check that out first before adjusting anything else. It's not always about eating less. Sometimes it's about that hormonal environment. And we definitely want to optimize that because if you just keep eating less, it just stresses the body even more, which is going to be even more detrimental for your hormones. So definitely want to pay attention to the hormone piece if you haven't already. And then we are going to talk about strength training. If you only take one thing from this video, I hope it's this: you should not be using a GLP-1 without strength training, okay? So without that, your body has no reason to keep muscle. Explain this in the beginning. It's very metabolically expensive. So when our calories go down, our body is going to drop off that muscle. That's the first thing that it wants to get rid of because it requires the most calories. And that's not what we want to lose. We want to lose fat and keep muscle. So how do we do that? We eat protein and we strength train. So when you're giving your body that signal that we need the muscle, like we're using the muscle every day or at least 3 or 4 times a week, then it's going to keep the muscle. It's going to keep most of it. You might lose a little bit, but we want to keep as much as possible. That's how we keep our metabolism intact. We don't want those long-term issues of, all of a sudden we're dropping all this muscle and now our metabolism is crashed. So it's nothing extreme. We're just talking about 3 to 4 days a week. If you're completely new to strength training, 2 days a week is fine, honestly. Just do something. Basic strength training. You want to use progressive overload, meaning every week you should be adding a little bit. So it doesn't have to be, if you're doing 2 days a week, that's fine. Maybe you start off doing 1 set of squats and 1 set of bench press and 1 set of lat pulls. And then the next week you add a second set, or you add a couple reps, or you add another day eventually. It's some sort of forward momentum where you're adding either weight, you're lifting a heavier weight, you're doing more reps, you're doing another set, or you're adding another day. So some type of addition each week, there should be a little bit. So it could just be like, I went from lifting 5 pounds to 7 pounds. Like that's progressive overload, okay? Don't overcomplicate it. Just start and continue to build. You do want to have good form, of course, and you can also utilize the machines at the gym, which tends to be a little bit more supportive. If you're a newbie, you don't really understand, if you don't know what you're doing, and I'm sure you can get someone at the gym to show you that usually most gyms include 1 free session where they'll teach you and walk you through. So, and then there's plenty of great programs, apps on your phone that you can get to get started. So just start lifting. You want to be lifting weights and you want to be doing as much as you can, meaning not just the 5-pound weights forever. 5 pounds, start, then go to 10 pounds and go to 15 pounds and continue to make progress. Okay, now I want to dive into sort of the common troubleshooting issues. The number one is going to be hair loss. And everybody thinks it's the GLP-1s fault, the poor GLP-1s. It's not their fault, okay? It's not the drug. It's typically because of low protein, rapid weight loss, or low nutrients. And this can manifest through thyroid issues typically, but a lot of times it's just not having enough nutrients. Your hair it's a vanity thing, right? We love our hair and our skin, but the body, that's not the most important thing in the body. So it's going to get rid of whatever is spending energy on that it doesn't absolutely need. And that's where it's our hair and our skin. And, so how to protect that? Going back to all the other things we talked about, nutrient dense food, drinking enough water, making sure you're eating enough, not dropping your calories too low. Now, once in a while, if that happens, that's not something to worry about. We're talking about what you do most days. So keeping your calories above 1,200. If one day you have an 800 calorie day, it's not going to be the end of the world. Just pick up tomorrow and, make sure that doesn't happen continuously. And that's going to support the hair loss the most, is just not dropping the weight too fast. And we didn't talk about this, but we want to be aiming for about 1% of our body weight in a week. So let's say we're 200 pounds. That means we can lose about 2 pounds per week. If you're 150 pounds, that means you can lose about 1.5 pounds per week. We don't want to go too much higher than that. That's where the muscle really starts to come into play. If we keep it low and slow, you're still going to get to that same destination. It's just going to be much more, you're going to lose more fat and less muscle that way. So this is the way I would explain it to a friend. Let's say you have 20 pounds to lose. You could certainly crank up the dose and not eat and lose that 20 pounds in, let's say 6 weeks. But let's 30% of that might be muscle, which is going to be very difficult to get back. So if we slow that down and we extend that out from 6 weeks to 12 weeks, right? Now we're losing at a good pace we're still getting there. It's 3 months instead of a month and a half, right? We're still getting that same destination, but it's a much slower approach, and we're going to be preserving our muscle because we're going to be eating a little bit more. We're going to be strength training and hopefully keeping most of that muscle. So that's how to think about it. It's the same outcome. It's just how you get there. Okay. The other issue that we commonly see is a low energy. And this is typically going to be three things: either your hormones. So again, go back to that, go see your doctor, get your hormones tested, thyroid, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. We want to make sure that our hormones are supported. Under eating, again, just keep your calories above 1200. You should be okay. And eating nutrient dense options, it's really going to support our energy, right? And then electrolytes. Don't underestimate that. I promise you, just adding a little electrolyte every day is going to be super, super beneficial to how you feel. And even just like I said earlier, if you have that feeling of crash, maybe you have that afternoon crash, go drink some water with electrolytes. And I promise you'll feel better. Like a 16-ounce glass of water. You're going to feel better really quickly. Then the third thing that we see a lot is constipation and bloating. This also goes back to hydration. So making sure you're staying hydrated, but you don't want to drink too much. You want to spread that out throughout the day. You don't want to drink it all before bed. Also having smaller meals. So maybe eating more frequently, but smaller meals. So if you can do, 4 smaller meals throughout the day. And then fiber. So we don't want to throw a ton of fiber into the system right away. Slowly add the fiber in, increase it every week. Things like chia seeds, adding flax seeds to a smoothie or a salad. You can do fiber gummies. Don't rely completely on that. You can do a little of the sun powder, but whole foods are really going to be how we get our fiber. That's going to be the best way. So slowly increasing that each week. And then another troubleshooting is if you're not losing weight. So this is not just to do with GLPs. This is even anyone on a diet. These are the things you would want to look at. Protein. So start there, do an analysis, take your phone and write down how much protein you're getting. There's lots of apps that you can track these. Protein, make sure you're hitting that protein target because you might think you are, but you might not be. And I even tell people get a scale, get a food scale for $10 and just weigh your food for a week. It's eye-opening. And then you'll have that valuable information moving forward. You'll be able to see, okay, now I know how much chicken breast looks like for, 5 ounces or 4 ounces. I'll know what it looks like for next time. It can be really helpful to do that for a couple of weeks just to get an idea of how much food you should be eating, especially protein. So do an audit, see how much protein you're eating. That's step one. The other thing is your training. So if you're not losing weight, then one of the things you can increase instead of reducing your calories, you can increase your movement. So do an audit of your steps. Make sure you're hitting, if you're getting only 5,000 steps, increase it to 6,000 and then keep doing that each week. Try to increase it by 500 to 1,000. Till you're getting 10, 12,000 steps a day. That's one of the ways to kind of modify that calorie in, calorie out equation is by adding more training, but don't overdo it either. But if you're someone who's not doing any at all, then that's a great way rather than reducing food, just increase your movement. Third thing is sleep. So if we're not sleeping, that's going to impact a lot of the hormones that impact weight loss. Cortisol, leptin, ghrelin, all of these are going to increase our ability to lose weight. So we definitely want to be making sure we're getting at least 7 to 8 hours of sleep every night and good quality sleep too. So go back to the basics, dark, cool room, having a set bedtime, maybe reading some fiction before bed, anything that's going to help you to fall asleep. And hormones. Hormones are really important too for sleep, but also for weight loss. We've kind of already touched on that. So if our hormones aren't dialed in, that might be something to look at with either your primary care or a specialist, or you can even find an online provider that can help with that. So to close up, we're going to just remind that GLP-1s are very powerful, but they're not the full solution. They're a tool. They're a tool, a weight loss tool. They create a window for you. And then what you do in that window, that determines how everything works out. Don't think of just eating less, which of course that is the goal. You need to be in a calorie deficit, but we want to make sure that we're properly fueling our body with nutrient-dense foods, with protein, that we're protecting our muscle by, again, eating protein and strength training and that's going to support our metabolism long term. This is how we get results that last, and this is how we don't feel like garbage going through the process. If you want a step-by-step breakdown of everything that we talked about today, the protein targets, the meal structure, training, hydration, all of my recommendations, I put that into a full GLP-1 optimization guide, and you can grab that below in the link in the description. And I will see you in the next video, so take care.